Hey, welcome to Believe in Clemson Football. I'm Will Vandervort. That's Alex Dodd. Welcome back. Alex, this is season 6 of Believe in Clemson Football. Can you believe it, man? Your second full season. I did the first 4 years with Levon Kirkland, former Clemson outstanding linebacker, Ring of Honor inductee, hopefully Pro Football Hall of Fame inductee, former Pittsburgh Steeler. We did that with him. Now, Alex, our second year with Alex on the podcast. Alex, man, that's crazy, man. I can't believe it's already 6 years.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, and it really does believe. It really does show you how the podcast has maybe not progressed as much as you want it to. That I'm the co-host now when it used to be Levon, but we still have a good time and ready for another year of Believe in Clemson Football. I mean, heck, we're less than 100 days out from the start of college football season. It's hard to believe. I mean, I was looking at the MLB standings today. I don't know why I do this to myself. But saw that they're about to cross the halfway point of the year, so it means fall's on the way, and it'll be here before we know it.
It is, and I hope you guys like our new background on our Believe in Clemson Football. Nothing better than to say Believe in Clemson Football, and you see national champions 1981, 2016, and 2018. A little bit of drop the mic kind of thing there, because that's something that another podcast that's down in the south, that's south of us in Columbia. They can't ever really put anything like this up for football. Kind of drop the mic and, kind of, I guess we don't walk away, but we just kind of enjoy as we look at it, Alex, right? I mean, and I'm sure all you Clemson fans out there are enjoying the way we're kind of, being braggadocious here with this picture.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice picture, and heck, if you listen to the media, you might think that they're going to add another number to that this year, the way people have been talking for the last month. Dabo, obviously, he said he doesn't know where it's coming from. But, some people think there's going to be another number added to that section of the stadium here pretty soon.
And for the YouTube police out there, this is a picture from the Clemson Insider. This is our picture. This is by Bart Boatwright, who's the photographer for the Clemson Insider. So that's for the YouTube police out there that are always looking for copyright infringements and things of that nature. Just let us know. This is ours. We're allowed to use this. And speaking of that, Alex, let's talk about why we get to use it, because we're on the Clemson Insider's YouTube channel, as you know, and you can find us here not only now here in the summertime, but also when we get into the season, and we'll be here each and every week once football season starts. And we like to appreciate Robert McRae and the folks at the Clemson Insider, which is my place of business as well, for allowing us to use their Facebook page, also the YouTube page, and the Twitter as well, or X, excuse me. Got to make sure I do that. I can't believe it's been over a year now, and I still can't get it right. So we appreciate
2 years. It's been like 2 years.
Yeah, so we appreciate the Clemson Insider for the most complete coverage of Clemson athletics and recruiting. Head on over to the Clemson Insider and check it out. A lot of recruiting news today. Clemson got a big commitment. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. Also, some news about somebody who is no longer on the Clemson team. We'll talk about that as well. And so all those things. But you can go to the Clemson Insider if you're curious, and you can go see what I'm talking about. It's free, so it's for me. So go check it out, the Clemson Insider. Also, you can find us at the Believe in Clemson Football on Spotify, our Apple Podcast, and more. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you will be able to find Believe in Clemson Football. We appreciate you guys being here with us as we kind of get you kind of in a football mood in the middle of June here. Me and Alex have talked about it. It's like we want to kind of get back out there and kind of get some Clemson football mojo going. As I mentioned, there is some news that came out today that we're going to talk about here in a second. But I want to let you know kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some things that I wrote on the Clemson Insider, some articles going on the 25 most explosive Clemson players, or that I did an article on. I want to kind of get some thoughts and opinions for you guys out there too that are watching. We'll love to see your comments, so please comment and let us know what you think on that. Also, I got the all millennial Clemson team from 2000 to 2025. And by the way, both these lists consist of from 2000 to 2024 seasons. So current players cannot be on it. And then also it has nothing to do with what happened in the 1980s and 70s and all that. So don't come at me with, oh, you don't got Anthony Simmons on this list. Well, that's because he graduated in 1997 or left Clemson in 1997. So that's why those guys are not on there. Believe it or not, Alex, you won't believe how many people make that mistake where they don't see that line there in my article where I say that. And they're like, this is all recency bias, and I'm like,
and you're like, yeah, it's about recent players.
It's exactly what it's about. But we're also going to talk a little bit about some things that are going on in the news. As I mentioned, recruiting. We're going to do that. Then there's some articles that you've probably seen if you've been following the Clemson Insider, decisions on college football's new format, college football playoff. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the future of college football. A lot of things are going on this week in Asheville. And then we'll discuss some news that came out today where 2 bills were introduced to prohibit reporting of NIL deals. So we'll kind of maybe get in a little bit of that too if we have some time. But first, want to kind of get the main news that went on this morning. A Clemson football player was dismissed from the team. Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney dismissed freshman athlete Marquise Henderson from the program. He's the first Clemson player Swinney has dismissed from the team since former linebacker TJ Dudley in 2023. Dudley, of course, as we know, ultimately transferred to Ole Miss after his time at Clemson. Clemson spokesperson said this in a release: Clemson has made the decision to dismiss Marquise Henderson from its program. We wish him the best as he moves forward. Henderson is expected to enter the transfer portal in the near future once he completes the requirements needed from an NCAA compliant standpoint. Clemson did not explain why Henderson was dismissed from the team. Alex, get your thoughts on that. The former BHP star, no longer a member of the Clemson team. He was only a member for 5 months, it looked like.
Yeah, you hate to see it, especially for a local kid that, grew up, less than an hour from Death Valley, about 45 minutes from Death Valley. I'm sure he had some dreams as a kid of playing in that stadium one day. So you hate to see it, but Dabo doesn't do this often. You mentioned it's the first one since 2023. When somebody gets dismissed from the Clemson football team, it's usually something, that there's good reason that they got dismissed. Now, not saying that we don't know anything about any kind of legal issue or anything like that. There hasn't been any reporting on that side. Nothing to suggest
think there is.
that.
There's nothing to suggest that. Yeah.
Nothing to suggest that. But, there's a high standard to play football at Clemson. But Dabo's also very loyal to his guys. So, that it probably is a decision that had to be made and there wasn't any way around it.
Yeah, I think this is an in-house decision where it just came down to probably this is best for both parties involved. I really believe that's what it is. And, you hate to see a kid of his potential not be able to make it. But, there's reasons why we're not party to that right now. When that does come available, Clemson, I'm sure Dabo will be asked about it, his next immediate availability, which if you're wondering when that's going to be, it's going to be in mid-July, so about a month from now. So before he talks to anybody in the media. But I like that Ross sent it to all his local writers first. Ross Taylor, the spokesperson for Clemson football, he sent the release to all of us first and allowed us to have the opportunity to get that out before the national media got a hold of it. So it was very appreciative for Ross to do that, taking care of his local media, and Dabo always taking care of the local media as well. That's why Dabo does his media golf outing, doesn't have the golf outing anymore. His media Olympics or whatever Dabo likes to call it these days. I can't remember what it is anymore. But it used to be a media golf outing. He always does it first with us in mid-July. And then the next week he goes to ACC football kickoff and talks to the national media and stuff like that. And we're there as well, but he allows us to get the first questions in and the first stories out. And so I'm always appreciative that Dabo thinks about his local media and he gets that from Bobby Bowden and Tommy Bowden. Bobby Bowden is big on that at Florida State when he was there, and Tommy brought that with him to Clemson, and Dabo kind of learned it, I think, from there, like it's important. And I'm sure if I said where it was really learned at the Clemson side, it was probably Tim Beret. And I'm going to give Tim Beret credit on that because Tim Beret was the one I think that kind of taught Dabo why it's important to take care of your media, especially your local media, and make sure those guys are appreciated as well. So anyway, that's that on that. So now that's the bad news. So now we'll work on some good news, Alex, because there was some good news for Clemson today. Clemson landed a big commitment in the form of a defensive end. 4-star defensive end Dre Quinn of Buford, Georgia, announced his commitment to the Tigers, choosing Clemson over Texas, Notre Dame, and Georgia. It really came down to Clemson and Texas, and Quinn picked the Tigers over the Longhorns. 6'4", 220-pound edge rusher. He's the second defensive end to commit to the Tigers in the 2026 class. He joins 3-star J.R. Hardrick, who announced early this month, coming off an official visit. So there's some good news for the Clemson fans. They got themselves a big-time defensive end that a lot of people going into this week, Alex, thought was going to be maybe leaning toward the Longhorns. And he's decided to be a Clemson Tiger instead.
Yeah, it's been pretty impressive to see Clemson's kind of, I guess, rejuvenation on the recruiting trail over this last cycle. Just going out and landing big fish after big fish. This takes the class up to, I believe, 6th in the composite, the 247 composite rankings. And the coaches have just been recruiting at a super high level. It also helps that, Clemson obviously is having to be competitive financially to beat out some of these schools as well, which was a big issue for a little while. But now you got the house settlement maybe coming into play, and that's helping Clemson be a little bit more competitive. And that's kind of the thing we've talked about on this show several times is that Clemson doesn't have to go out and offer more than Texas or more than some of these schools to get high-level recruits because Clemson's, outbid them before. Clemson's outbid for recruits in the past when they needed to without having to get into the financial aspect of it that maybe some other schools got caught doing before it was legal. But Clemson just had to bridge the gap. And now Clemson's finally been able to bridge the gap and go out and get some of these big names.
Yeah, they've definitely done a good job here in the last, I guess, going back to started last year, I think. And once Clemson figured out this whole NIL thing and how they could, in the rev share and how this thing's all going to work, I think it started benefiting Clemson. Clemson educated themselves, Graham Neff and Dabo educated themselves fast on what was going to happen, how it was going to happen. They had a committee put together in the school to kind of make, get things, let's all get on the same page as an athletic department. So we know what we can and can't do when this thing goes through. As we all know, rev share will begin on July 1st. And Clemson has been very active and strong in this market and has, gone out and I think right now they're top 5 in recruiting right now, depending on what website you're looking at. And, so they got themselves a strong class right now of basically, though, I love what they're doing out because they're getting a strong class of offensive and defensive linemen. And you folks, I know you love the wide receivers and I know you love the pretty quarterbacks and I know you love the running backs and all those great things. And I'm starting to sound like a certain president of the United States right now. But I know you love all those things, right? But it starts with the offense and defensive line. That's how you win championships. And Clemson's going back to its roots and building within first, and then they're going to take care of those other parts. And so, and of course, they've got some of those already in place with the wide receivers they brought in last year, and DJ Moore and Bryant Westco. And then, what they have with Antonio Williams and Tyler Brown there. So they're loaded at the skill positions. You got
Gideon Davidson.
Gideon Davidson at running back and Ezeme as well back there with Adam Randall joining them. And it's going to be an interesting backfield. So I think the pieces are in place to keep this thing going for a long time if they want to. So I really like what Dabo has done from a recruiting standpoint. Granted, I am no recruiting expert. If you want to listen to that, you listen to Jason Priester, who is here each and every week on Mondays doing his breakdown, and most of it is all recruiting. As you guys know, Jason does a great job, better than anybody in the Clemson beat that knows what's going on in the world of recruiting. And you can follow Jason's stuff at the Clemson Insider. He's got all those articles up now, and he's killing it, man. I mean, JP kills it. If you guys don't follow the Clemson Insider and you don't follow Jason Preacher, you need to start doing it because the man knows his stuff. And so I'm going to leave all that to him.
Well, one more thing while we're still on
Go
this.
ahead.
You mentioned that like strength in the trenches in that 26 class. Well, Tate Reynolds, your quarterback commit in that class, just balled out at the Elite 11 too. So you have what you hope is
your future,
your quarterback of the future going out and doing it with the best quarterbacks in his class. And a lot of people in the recruiting services are saying that he may even get a bump up in the next set of rankings that come out. So this class is super exciting to look at. Clemson's strung together some huge wins on the recruiting trail, and that's kind of been some welcome news. I think that's contributed to this kind of good vibes off season that it feels like Clemson's having right now. I mean, you get all this media hype train going on about your upcoming football season in the fall, and to go along with it, you have some results driven impact on the recruiting trail, and veteran coaches are a big part of that too. So having experienced coaches who've gone out and won on the trail before make a huge difference when you're in that in those competitive battles with other top programs.
Absolutely. And speaking of good vibes and making you feel good, guess what season it is, Alex? What season is it? If you're breaking down the football season, what season are we in right now?
It's talking season right now.
Right. And what starts talking season? What gives us talking season? What one thing that if you're a college football fan that in the month of June you do?
And you lost me.
I lost you, huh? No, you're not. When I show you, it's
magazines. Oh yeah, you get your magazines. Your magazines are out. Lindy's is out. Phil Steele.
Athlon Sports is out. So I got Lindy's and Athlon Sports. I got a little bit I want to talk about here. And please, if you guys got questions, I know some people have already commented on certain things and have asked us questions. We'd love to have you here in a few moments. We're going to talk about a story I did earlier this week or last week on Clemson's most dynamic players. I'm going to give you my list here in just a second. Give me who you think are your most dynamic players. We're also going to go over my Clemson team from the year 2000 to now. And then also no current player can be listed on it. And then also that's my most dynamic is from 2000 to 2024 as well. So you can't put a current Clemson player on it. But anyway, I'm going to go over my list. Give me your thoughts here in just a minute. Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts on yours and whether you think I'm stupid or not. But Alex here, if you go to look at Lindy's top 25, Lindy has Clemson ranked number 4 in its preseason top 25 poll. That Texas number 1, no surprise to me, followed by Penn State, Ohio State, and Clemson. LSU, which surprises me, comes in at number 5. I don't think LSU is a top 5 team, but maybe I'm wrong. I guess we're going to find that out on August 30th, aren't we? Number 6 is Notre Dame. Number 7 is Oregon. And then rounding out the top 10 is Alabama, who I think is the most overrated team on this list. Number 9 is Georgia, and number 10 is Miami. If you're wondering, the Chickens are ranked number 13th in the preseason poll. I think that's a little high too, in my opinion. I think South Carolina has a chance to be good, but it all depends on Lenore Sellers. And he's going to win him some games just based off himself, but there's a lot of question marks on that defense right now. I'm just not sold on South Carolina starting the season as a top 15 team.
See, that's more the question for me when it comes to South Carolina is less about the quarterback and just a lot more about that defense. I mean, they had a really good defense last year, some high-level players, especially on that defensive line, and you lost so much coming into the year, it's going to be hard to maintain.
I know Paul Sanders is laughing. He says magazines over on YouTube, laughing out loud. Paul, listen, buddy, I know you may not read, but if you go get these magazines, you will find out everything you need to know about every team in the country without having to go online and try to. Because the thing is, when you go online, it's not there in place for you. So you got to go seek out the information. And who wants to seek out every team in college football or the top 25 teams when you can just go to get one of these magazines and it'll tell you everything about each team in the country.
Well,
that's
also,
why I love them, because I get that information in my hand.
If you want to be the king of water cooler talk, get you one of those magazines. You'll know everything about every team. And when somebody brings up, oh, well, I kind of, I'm feeling a little bullish on Iowa State or whatever, you'll actually know who plays for Iowa State in that conversation. So, I mean, there are a lot of benefits to them. I like it too as a reference. Like you can go back and look at other teams. So I'm a big fan of that.
Somebody, Tiger in the Burrow says, check out Phil Steele's assessment of the chickens. I need to get my Phil Steele magazine. I haven't gotten it yet, so I'm definitely interested. The way you say that, it sounded sarcastic, or maybe he's high on them. I don't know. Let us know if that's what the case is. Maybe I'm wrong. I still think the defense is an interesting thing, Alex. For me, I think it's the defense, right? Don't you think they're the ones that are what do you think of South Carolina? I don't want to talk about South Carolina football, but I'm just saying, like,
that's the thing for me. You just lost way too much talent on the defensive side of the ball to replicate that this year. But I do agree. I mean, the quarterback's dynamic. Obviously, apparently somebody offered him $8 million. I don't know who that was. I saw somebody mentioned earlier in the chat that some Gamecock fans were trying to act like Clemson offered him $8 million. So I think Clemson has a pretty good quarterback. So
they can get him on the sideline and call plays, they said.
Yeah, exactly.
A fake Gamecock account put that out.
Yeah, that was good. Good one, John.
Yeah. Anyway, Tigers in the Burrow, he said 35. The Gamecocks are ranked 35th or something like that in his national ranking. So Phil Steele obviously feels the way I do, that maybe, some people are overrating the Gamecocks just a little bit. I just think they got a chance to be a good team. But again, I don't know if they're top 15 heading into the season. But what I do know,
they very easily could be by the end of it. But
right. What I do know is Clemson is a top 5 team, I think, heading into the season. And the Tigers are ranked number 4. Alex, what are your thoughts on where Lindy has Clemson ranked in their preseason poll? Do you think number 4 sounds about right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. I know, Clemson obviously brings a ton of production back on both sides of the ball. Mm-hmm. And, you feel more optimistic defensively because of the everything that's come out in the spring with the coaching change, with having Tom Allen over there. So I think you feel optimistic for that reason. And I think Clemson, you look at the Jimmies and Joes, you look at the coaching staff, there's a lot about Clemson that's already proven. They've proven they can be dynamic on offense. They've proven that they have an elite coaching staff. They've proven they know how to win. So that makes you feel really confident, and that's what you look for when you want a top 5 or a top 10 team. You don't want somebody who's got to go out and prove it, or you maybe have huge question marks about. You want a team that you feel like, by and large, proved it last year and is bringing a lot back. So I feel good about number 4. I definitely don't have Clemson, coming in as the number 1 team in the country going into the year, but who knows? I mean, college football is so unpredictable. This new landscape of college football with the playoff makes it even more unpredictable. I feel like we're going to have a lot of years in the near future where the best team in the country is not going to win the national championship, and that's just going to be the way it is, because you got to be the best team in the playoff. Same thing with a basketball team or a baseball team. You got to be the best team in the playoff and the best team in the regular season to put yourself in good position. But I like number 4. I feel like that's a fair assessment of Clemson going into the year.
Yeah, I think it is too. And by the way, in case you're wondering, Athlon has Clemson ranked number 5, behind Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, and Georgia. Georgia's ranked, I think, somewhere in that top 5 too. Lindy's has got Georgia ranked number 9. I think that's a little too low. They got them ranked below Alabama, and I'm like, Georgia's, I think, better than Alabama. I know the question mark is the quarterback.
Yeah,
there's so much talent all the way on that roster. Like,
well, you're also talking about a team
hard for the quarterback to screw it up. Is my point.
You're talking about a team that won national championship with Stetson Bennett. I mean,
yeah, exactly. If anybody knows how to win with less, it's Kirby Smart.
Yeah, I would have Georgia ahead of Alabama. Penn State is a team that I think a lot of people should be really high on coming into the year.
Number 2 in both polls. Yeah, I
feel like they're very similar to Clemson. I feel like you could have Clemson and Penn State interchangeable in those spots.
Ohio State, I think, defending national champs. I think number 3 sounds just about right there. And Texas, I think Texas is loaded. And now here's the interesting part. So Lindy's has Cade Klubnik as their preseason All-American quarterback. Athlon has Arch Manning as theirs.
How do they have Arch? I mean, what has Arch Manning done other than
his name is Manning?
Be a Manning to be
that's all he has to do right now. Yeah, I agree. So a little surprised.
I mean, the kid's going to be great. The kid's going to be great, but let's let him maybe play for
Is he going to be great? Because he didn't beat out Ewers last year.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. What did Trevor Lawrence come in? Now, granted, I think Ewers is probably a better quarterback than Kelly Bryant. Maybe. I don't know. Kelly Bryant's pretty good. But Trevor Lawrence came out here and beat out Kelly Bryant, right? It took the job. Deshaun Watson came in and beat out Cole Stout and took the job. If you're supposed to be the best quarterback in your class, shouldn't you be able to go out and take out the guy who not as highly rated as you are? Now, I know Ewers was highly rated, but he wasn't the best one in his class. So,
yeah, and I like what Rob says here. I think DJ Lagway, I would say the same thing. I think he's going to have a better season.
I think Lagway, I agree. I think that depends on his health. If he stays healthy, right now there's questions about his arm and has he hurt his arm strength down? I don't know. We're going to find out. But, you don't know what you hear is true or not. And so that's why they got to play the games. But I agree with Rob. I think Lagway is, to me, if he does what he's supposed to, he could be a better quarterback. And then, there's this guy named Osmeyer at LSU that I think is all first-team SEC quarterback. The guy did nothing but light up the scoreboard last year.
Yeah, and he has a pedigree too. So, there's going to be a lot of exciting players to watch in college football this season. And one of them's going to be wearing number 2 for the Tigers. As you mentioned there, a lot of people have him as a preseason All-American and expect big things out of Cade this year. And if he can keep building, I mean, you saw the progress from year 1 to year 2 and 2 to 3. If he stays on that train, there aren't going to be a whole lot of quarterbacks in the country with a chance to be better than that guy.
And I know Data Race 117 says, we saw Manning last year. He won like a game or two in relief of Ewers. That's accurate. He did. But look who they were against. It was, I think, Mississippi State, in which he actually struggled in that game. A Mississippi State team that went winless in the SEC, by the way. And then his other game was a game against like a group of 5 team.
Yeah, like Texas State or UTSA or something like that.
Somebody directional school.
And he's still in neither of those.
His numbers were okay, but they weren't great. And then when he played against Clemson, think about it, he didn't do anything when he came in against Clemson. And it's not like Clemson's defense was great last year. We all know that. And he didn't look like he was like overwhelming in that game to me. So I want to see it against somebody like Georgia. I want to see it. That's what I want to see him do in those kind of games. Right now, he's all hype. And again, he still didn't go and take Ewers out. He didn't take the job from him, which is what everybody thought he was going to do. And he didn't. And so that tells me, doesn't mean he's not going to be a good quarterback or a great quarterback. It just means last year he definitely wasn't ready. And the question is he ready this year to lead this team? Now, the good news for him is he's loaded. He's got star players all around him, whether it be a running back, whether it be a wide receiver. His offensive line is unbelievable. They got some question marks on defense because they did lose some of those good defensive players, but they also bring back one of the best defensive ends in the country. So he's got playmakers surrounding him that it's going to be hard for him to screw it up. But is he better than the guys we just named at this point in his career? No, because he hadn't played. And I think that's what we all got to put into account here.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. This is a guy he's had chances to prove it. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's a freshman coming in that, just got out of high school and was lighting it up like Trevor Lawrence or whatever, which I don't think I remember anybody saying Trevor Lawrence was going to be an All-American quarterback his freshman year. But
let's keep in mind Trevor Lawrence is the only freshman ever to win a national championship as a true freshman. So let's make sure that is noted out there. He's the first one since a redshirt freshman won in '85, but Trevor was a true freshman and won the national championship.
Yeah, but I don't even think – I'm still putting Drew Aller above Arch Manning in those conversations. And Drew Aller, he had a great season last year. He passed for 3,300 yards and only threw 8 picks, but he's still not a guy that wows you.
No.
So who knows? Maybe Arch Manning will come up with something else. But
also on the All-American team for from a Clemson standpoint, on Lindy's, you had Blake Miller made second team All-American. And then on the defensive side, TJ Parker and Peter Woods were both named first team All-Americans. And Avion Terrell was named a second team All-American. If you look over at Athlon, First team All-American was T.J. Parker and Peter Woods. And then second team All-American, Cade Klubnik, and then also Antonio Williams. And then they also do a third team All-American over there. And they had they got I believe that it's Blake Miller as an All-American, as well as Avion Terrell on the defense. So pretty good representation for Clemson, I think, on those All-American preseason teams. It's about where I would have them.
Yeah, and we talked about Phil Steele. Ross Taylor, who we mentioned earlier, tweeted this out yesterday as well. Clemson first teamers, Cade Klubnik, TJ Parker, and Peter Woods. Second team, Blake Miller and Avion Terrell. Third team, Antonio Williams and Wade Woodaz.
Wade Woodaz. How about that?
Yeah, Wade Woodaz.
That's the first Wade Woodaz one I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it goes to show the depth of this Clemson team and you throw a rock and hit somebody who has an All-American ceiling. Now, you know, whether or not when the bright lights turn on and you run down the hill, that's the case with each one of those guys is a different story. But you feel like you have the ceiling from a lot of guys that could be All-Americans, even some that we didn't name to those lists.
Absolutely. Look at the all ACC team. By the way, Lindy's and Athlon picked Clemson to win the ACC. Lindy's had Clemson playing Miami in the championship game, or Athlon, had Clemson playing Miami in the championship game. I don't know what Lindy's has yet. I hadn't seen who they picked. Hold on a second. They got Miami as well. Alex, I'm nervous. I don't like picking Miami because Miami has burned me every time.
Here's why you're not going to pick Miami.
Because they burn me?
You're not because every time you pick Miami, they finished like 7th in the conference. Or back when they had divisions, they finished like 7th in the division whenever you picked them. And Will could go back and show you. I mean, I'm sure you have it on a piece of paper that says when you picked them and where they finished because you're crazy like that. The other reason you don't pick Miami is because why would you pick Carson Beck to be like lead Miami to the promised land? I mean, a guy who like left his school to like maybe go hang out with his girlfriend that he's not dating anymore.
And he's the exact opposite of the guy that just left.
Yeah. I mean, he had the potential to come back and win a national championship at Georgia because the talent around him around that position is that good at Georgia this year. And instead he went to Miami. Maybe he just likes the beach. I don't know. I mean, guys leave for different reasons, but that's why you don't pick Miami.
Well, he didn't want to compete because Kirby Smart, being what you just talked about, that he's been said that he's not a good teammate and all that stuff. Kirby Smart knows it too. And I think Kirby Smart says, hey, look, you're going to have to compete for your job if you want it. And also I think Kirby Smart knew the guys in the locker room didn't like him. And it sort of was a wink, wink. You probably need to move on because, you're going to have to compete for your job and you're probably not going to win it.
And they've got Gunnar Stockton who, we saw – what he was able to do kind of on short notice. He wasn't ready last year when he went in, but he showed you some flashes that make you think he could be a really
he moved the ball against Texas defense, and that's no
he moved the ball. He had some moxie to him. Seems like he has a lot of toughness, and those are things that you can build on. Now, if a guy doesn't have any toughness, it's kind of hard to manufacture that, but he's got the foundation to be a good player.
If I don't pick again, and everybody seems to think like I do, they got SMU there, and here we are again. SMU, I picked SMU to go to the ACC championship game last year. I think SMU's got an up-and-coming coach. I don't know how much longer Rhett Lashley's going to be there because he keeps winning. And
if they keep paying him, he may stay.
He may stay.
Money's not a problem at SMU.
It's not, and that's why they're going to always have good players. That's why I think SMU is always going to be in that top 3 or 4 in the ACC every year. So both of them got SMU listed. Now you get a little bit different feel when you start talking about who's next. Lindy's has Florida State at number 4, which I think is way too high. Athlon has Florida State at number 7, I believe. And then when you look at Louisville's coming in at number 5 for them, they're number 4 in Athlon. Georgia Tech is number 5 in Athlon. They're number 7 here. They got Pitt number 6 in Lindy's, and that's a little surprising to me. I'm more with Athlon where they got Pitt ranked number 8. I think Pitt's got a chance to be good, but again, more question marks than answers on that Pitt team as well for me. And so I'm not ready to put them in that top 5 yet in the ACC. To me, if I had to say who the top 5 teams were, not put them in any order, I would say Clemson, SMU, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Louisville would be my top 5. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good. I do think the question marks can benefit you if you're Florida State, that you do have some unknowns, because if you knew that you just had the same team that you had last year, you'd be pretty scared for this upcoming football season. But I think Florida State's a team that, they could very easily end up being in that top 5 if things go their way and their moves kind of pan out. I mean, they went out and got Gus Malzahn at offensive coordinator, Tony White, I believe that's their defensive coordinator they went and got. So they made some good moves in the offseason. But then you got a team like North Carolina who, despite all the Bill Belichick book drama, girlfriend drama, whatever, he's got some really good players on his roster and has an extremely favorable schedule.
Yes, he
so
does.
That's another team that I think could be kind of right on the doorstep there.
And by the way, in case you're curious, there's the Clemson schedule. Roll that. Let that roll a little bit while we're talking so you guys can see when Clemson plays or open dates and stuff like that, just in case you don't know. I know pretty much all of you guys that are probably watching right now do know all that stuff, but we figured I'd throw it out there anyway. So there's a little bit of some preseason Clemson stuff right now. We won't go too much longer into that. Well, I want to kind of get Alex's thoughts and your thoughts on the teams that I put together here. And we'll start off first with let's see, how did I call this? I dubbed it
ETN Spiller.
Yeah, ETN and Spiller lead Clemson's all-star list for the 2000s. And so here's what I mean by that. So I'm going to go ahead, guys, and you tell me what you think. But here's my team, Alex. It's I got on offense, I got quarterback Deshaun Watson. Running back is Travis Etienne. Wide receiver is Sammy Watkins. Wide receiver number 2 is Mike Williams. Wide receiver number 3 is DeAndre Hopkins. My tight end is Dwayne Allen. My all-purpose player is CJ Spiller. At left tackle, I got Mitch Hyatt. At left guard, I got John Simpson. At center, I got Dalton Freeman. At right guard, I got Nathan Bennett. At right tackle, I got Barry Richardson. On the defensive side of the ball, at defensive end, my 2 defensive ends are Vic Beasley and Daquan Bowers. At defensive tackle is Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence. At linebacker, I got Keith Adams, Ben Boulware, and Jermaine Trotter Jr. My all-purpose defender is Isaiah Simmons. At cornerback, I got Ty Hill and Mackenzie Alexander. At safety, I got Jaron Kearse and DeAndre McDaniel. On the special teams, Greg Hugel is my kicker, followed by Bradley Pinion as my punter. I got kicker. My kick returner is Justin Miller, and my punt returner is Ray McLeod. All right, Alex, your thoughts on my all Clemson team for the 2000s?
Well, I'm not going to lie. When I started reading through your team, I got a little panicked because I didn't see CJ Spiller's name higher on your list. I guess you just didn't put all-purpose player as the number 1 position. That was really creative of you to work in a running back and an all-purpose player so that you can have Travis Etienne and CJ Spiller. I see what you did there. But man, I think it's a great team, and it shows you that, Clemson's had all-star talent for a long time. It's not all guys from those national championship teams. There were great players at Clemson before that. Ty Hill is one that kind of stands out to me in that vein, and Justin Miller. Guys that, I kind of, when I was first watching Clemson football as a little kid, guys that I remember watching. And then, man, just the depth that Clemson's had over the last 2 decades, to be able to put together a list like that is pretty impressive. And I know some people probably looked at the list and thought that, what the heck, why aren't such and such from the 80s or whatever on here, but it was your all 2000s team.
My favorite, the one I got, it was Anthony Simmons was the one I got asked about the most. Why isn't Anthony Simmons on there? I'm like, because Anthony Simmons graduated in 1997 or left Clemson program in 1997 to go pro. So that's why he wasn't there in 2000. I know some people asked about Rod Gardner, why I didn't have him on there. But you look at the 3 I got at wide receiver. I mean, I don't know if you can pick any of the 3 that are better than DeAndre Hopkins, Sammy Watkins, and Mike Williams. I mean, I mean, some people asked about Hunter Renfrow. Why wasn't Renfro on there? But let's be honest, Renfro is not those three guys. And so you kind of go by who are the best players. And Renfro was a special player in the sense of how he made plays. Arthur Moss asked about what about Gaines Adams? Great question.
That's a fair ask.
It's a fair ask, a very fair ask. And I did think about it. But if you look at the two guys I went with in Bowers and with Vic Beasley is Clemson's all-time sack leader. That means for the career. Also, Vic Beasley, here's a stat that nobody knows. Vic Beasley is the only Clemson player from period in the history of Clemson football to be a two-time consensus All-American. Now, you think about all the names we just named out. Yeah. He is the only one to be a consensus two-time All-American. He did it twice. Not once, but twice. He did it in 2013 and 2014. That's why Vic Beasley is on that list. He's the all-time sack leader in Clemson history as well. You got to put him at number one. I'm sorry. And then Bowers is number two. And the reason I picked Bowers over Gaines Adams is because Bowers had ultimately the greatest season by a Clemson defender in the history of Clemson football, where he led the nation in sacks. He was second in the nation in tackles for loss. He won the Bronco Nagurski Award as the nation's top defensive player. He won the Hendricks Award as the nation's top defensive end. So it was a kind of like you had to go there because Bowers had the hardware and he had the greatest season, even though Gaines Adams' senior year was a great season too, but comparatively, Bowers was way better. And so it's hard to go with Gaines Adams. Both were consensus All-Americans. If I did a second team, Gaines is obviously on my second team. There's no doubt about it. And Cleveland Farrell is on my second team as well. So that's why.
John Grant said he would put T. Higgins over Mike Williams on his list.
Yeah, I thought about that too. But then when you looked again at the accolades, Mike Williams, his accolades were better. And he finished third in Clemson history in as far as the best season in Clemson history. He finished tied for second and tied for the team. I mean, tied all time. No, excuse me. That was Higgins that's tied all time for touchdowns with the other two we mentioned above. But Higgins' numbers weren't as good as Mike Williams' numbers overall. And, also Williams was more of an All-American. He had more hardware, All-ACC, first team All-ACC more than Higgins. Higgins had a great career too. If again, we're talking, apples and apples here. I could pick either one and somebody's not going to be happy with it. But to me, I thought Williams, when you look at the play he made and the catches he made in the national championship game on that big stage, not that Higgins didn't, because he did as well, but in that game, on that game-winning drive, Mike Williams is the reason why Clemson wins that game, because he makes one of the most unbelievable catches during the drive, and then it's because of him, and they're throwing the ball, is the reason why Clemson gets the ball put at the 1 yard line, because he draws a pass interference penalty in the end zone, because Alabama's like, nobody's named Mike Williams is going to beat us. And so Clemson had to find somebody else to win the game. And of course it was Hunter Renfro. So that's why I went with Williams over Higgins. That's a good question. I appreciate the question there, John. That was a good one. Keep them coming, guys. Some of the other ones I had issues. We see right here, Jackson Carman, Data Racer wants to know about why not Jackson Carman on the team. Jackson Carman wasn't like, he didn't have that. When you think about the guys I got on there, the guys I got on there were more decorated. Yeah. And they had better overall careers, and they were on better offensive lines too. And so that's why I went with who I had on there over Carman, who was great. Don't get me wrong, but Carman didn't have the kind of career Mitch Hyatt had or Barry Richardson. Those two guys had great careers at Clemson, and they both started as true freshmen and really were unbelievable. They both kind of broke the barriers when it came to offensive linemen in Clemson football history. So those two guys did. So that's why I went with those two guys at left tackle and right tackle.
I really like this list. And it brings back a lot of great memories. I'm sure you have a blast writing these things.
Oh, I did.
In the off season. I remember when you were doing last year, you were ranking Clemson players all time by position. Is that what you were doing last year?
It was. Yep.
And you're calling me, you're like, man, I'm splitting hairs here. I'm like, I bet that's what you have to do on some of these things. And I'm sure if you made an all-time Clemson team, that there would be guys that would make their all-decade team in your mind that could be justifiably on the all-time team. I mean, that's how close these margins are on things and trying to compare people in different eras.
Absolutely. And then I know some people ask about Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. I think that's the other one that was debated a lot on my timeline and things like that, on my notifications. And the reason I go with Deshaun is when you look at that, Clemson doesn't play or win a national championship without Deshaun Watson. I think Clemson probably could have won a national championship in 2018 without Trevor Lawrence. I think Kelly Bryant could have won him a national championship too. Would it have been a little bit harder? Maybe. In the playoffs, maybe it would have been.
Yeah, like you wouldn't have won 44-16.
But they were so good. Those teams were so good in 2018. They were so good that they just had to show up to win. I mean, they really were that good. I mean, that nobody, they did have the game against A&M and Syracuse, but after they got past that Syracuse game, it was over. Nobody came close to beating them, including Alabama. And once they figured things out, they were just better. And does Trevor Lawrence win 2 national titles? No, he doesn't, because Trevor Lawrence didn't have the comeback ability, or at least we don't know, because he never was in it.
It's hard to say that he wouldn't, because you didn't see him play in those situations.
It's true, but the talent wasn't as good around Deshaun as it was Trevor. And I'm talking about, like, think about those Clemson defenses in 2015 and 16. They weren't that good. They were good compared to some teams, but they weren't good compared to 2018, 17, 18, and 19 teams. Those defenses weren't. And they gave up a lot of points. They didn't have depth, so they gave up. So they got tired. The first team was good. Let me correct that. Clemson's first team defense was really good, but there was a drop off from first to second. And that's why Ben Boulware and Carlos Watkins and all those guys had to play so many snaps. I think, what was it, like Cleveland Farrell and Ben Boulware were playing like almost every snap of the entire season.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like ridiculous. Shaq Lawson the year before was doing the same thing in 2015. Christian Wilkins came in and was like almost, even though he was a backup, he pretty much played starter minutes because he had to play so many snaps because they just didn't have the depth, and they needed to give Carlos Watkins a break, from time to time. That defense, that's why they got worn down by Lamar Jackson in that second half. Remember, that's why they got wore down in other games when they had leads and they would give them up. 2015, they struggled the same way. And, but when you think about what Deshaun Watson did, like, go back to that Florida State game. Clemson doesn't win that game without Deshaun Watson. They don't. They go back to the Louisville game. They don't win that game without Deshaun Watson. If you go back to definitely the Alabama game, they definitely don't win that game without Deshaun Watson. That Alabama team would have destroyed Trevor Lawrence. They would have, because they were destroying Deshaun. They were just, remember the helicopter? Remember he got hit and they did a helicopter on me? Remember the first 3 times they hit Deshaun, they got called for roughing the passer penalties? Remember it was something like that? I may be over-exaggerating, but I remember there was a roughing the passer penalty. Deshaun, that offensive line wasn't very good. It was average at best in 2016. And Deshaun took a lot of hits, and he had to make plays. And his ability to be elusive and get out of the pocket, which is not Trevor's strength. We all know that. It's more Deshaun's strength. That allowed Deshaun to keep plays alive and do the magical things that he did. I just think Deshaun Watson, when you look at that 2016 season, he did have to come back 6 times in the fourth quarter of that year to win game. He did have to do it, and he did it. Trevor was never called upon but one time to do that in his career, and that was against Ohio State, and he did it. Yeah. But then in the other games, when he played in the national championship game against LSU, didn't do very well in that situation, playing from behind. And then another game, it was, to help me out, Alex, his sophomore year, when they lost. They lost the national championship. Oh, then the next year against Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl, his junior year, he had to play from behind, and he wasn't able to get it done. Whereas Deshaun played behind, it seemed like almost every week. And he found a way on the biggest of stages to win. And he did that. Look, he came from behind against Oklahoma. People forget that. Oklahoma led at halftime in that Orange Bowl. Deshaun Watson is the reason why Clemson came from behind and won that game.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, Deshaun, if you look at his career, it honestly seemed like he's more comfortable playing from behind than he was playing with a lead. And guys that come along with that kind of clutch gene, back me into a corner and I'm gonna fight my way out attitude, those guys don't come around except once in a generation.
exactly.
And he's absolutely that type of player. And it was so fun to watch. And the other thing about those Deshaun teams is, man, like in 2016, when Clemson got the ball back, Dad and I looked at each other and just said, there's too much time left. Like Deshaun's going to go down the field, because that's what he did. I mean, that's what he did every single time he was in that situation. He could put together the game-winning drive, because that's the kind of player he was.
Absolutely.
He just thrived in those big moments, like perhaps no other player in Clemson history has ever thrived in moments like that.
I absolutely agree. And again, to be fair, Trevor Lawrence was never really put in those positions that much.
Yeah,
so I can't judge Trevor, and I'm not saying it's 1A, 1B, and I'm not saying anything against Trevor, because he wasn't put in those positions.
He's like, Deshaun's 100 times better than Trevor. So, I mean, people forget too, Trevor Lawrence finished his career as the most efficient quarterback in college football history.
That's true.
That's how good of a quarterback Trevor Lawrence was. He just didn't throw incomplete passes. I mean, that's how good he was.
And he threw a lot of touchdowns too.
They both did. Nobody's saying that.
And another thing, and if you want to go apples and oranges, Deshaun Watson had almost 2,000 yards rushing in his career and scored 26 touchdowns. That's another reason you go Deshaun, because he was more versatile. Trevor had his moments running the football, but that's not what they wanted him to do, and where Deshaun was a part of the running game, especially when you got into the playoffs, he became really part of the running game. Sort of like you're probably going to see Cade Klubnik this year, to be honest with you. That's what I think you're going to see. But anyway, that's our list there. Now, here's the one where I got a lot of debate from. Okay, Alex. And so let me see. Not that. Let's see. We want to go to – here we go. Who's more dynamic, Spiller or ETN? And this is on my all-dynamic team. So I'm going to go ahead and give you who I had on my all-dynamic team.
So your all-dynamic team was 1 to 20, ranked 1 to 25.
Ranked 1 to 25. So the 25 most dynamic players since 2000 to 2024. Only players that are not on the current Clemson team. So anybody on this year's roster is not eligible. So, but give you what I mean by dynamic.
You should start at 25.
I will. Okay. So over the years, Clemson's had its share of dynamic players, even more so since the start of the new millennium. Guys like Woodrow Dantzler, Rob Gardner, Justin Miller, C.J. Spiller, Deshaun Watson, and Travis Etienne, to name a few. I can go on and on. I'm limiting it to just 25 players based on, it was just the easiest thing to do here, because you got 25 years. So just basically, you're not saying one per year, but you're just saying 25 players. The dynamic, what I mean by dynamic is by this. A guy who can score in so many different ways. He can defend in so many different ways. It means they can change the outcome of a game with one explosive play on offense or special teams, or one big play or hit on defense. That's what I mean by dynamic, okay? So I started off number 25 with Chancey Stuckey. Played at Clemson from 2002 to 2006. This is a very hard list to do, Alex. Trust me.
It's just crazy to think, as dynamic as Chancey Stuckey was in his time at Clemson and beyond, that he's number 25 on the list.
Yes, but I had to get him on here, though. But I had to get him on here because
I know he has to be on the list, but it's crazy to think that Chancey Stuckey's ranked 25 on that list.
But as we go, you'll understand why. Because number 24 is Hunter Renfrow. Now,
I think Chancey probably could be number 24, and Hunter could be number 25 in terms of dynamic.
I thought about that too, but when you think of what Hunter did in big games, how he found ways to get open, and his ability to get open, especially on third down, is what made him so dynamic. And that's where he stood out more to me than Chancey Stuckey.
Well, and he makes he has the crazy long touchdown play against South Carolina. He has the game-saving tackle against Alabama on the interception.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's if I have to pick a moment, that's the play I pick more than any. It's not his touchdown catch. It's that play where he prevented Alabama from going up 2 scores at that point. It was huge.
Yeah, he's literally single-handedly saved the game with one hand on an ankle. So I see what you mean. I probably have Chancey as more dynamic, but obviously Hunter's contributions to Clemson and to Clemson football, in his playing career, a bigger impact in that way.
Well, if you want to go see what list we're talking about here, this is a story I wrote for the Clemson Insider this past week. It's called "Who's More Dynamic, Spiller or Etienne?" You can Google it or whatever. Go to the ClemsonInsider.com, find it. So anyway, now at number 23, Jordan Leggett, the former Clemson tight end that's been a guest on this show, by the way. Jordan was there from 2013 to 16, All-American. Think about the catch he made in the national championship game in 2016. One of the biggest catches in Clemson history. It set up the game-winning score. Obviously, just the way he stretched out his arms, it's still – I've never seen anybody catch a ball like that to this day. It was unbelievable. And also, people forget, he won the Florida State game that year with the winning touchdown. He had the winning catch against Louisville as well. Jordan Leggett was big time when he needed to be big time. There's no doubt. Yes. Number 23 – speaking of big time and making big time catches, Rod Gardner from 1997 to 2000. South Carolina fans call it a push off. Clemson fans call it a great catch. Either way,
it happened. Creating separation.
He's just creating separation. That's all he did. And, it allowed Clemson to get a game-winning field goal, a 50-yard pass from Woodrow Dantzler against the Gamecocks in 2000. One of the greatest plays in the history of that rivalry, without a doubt. I would rank it number 2 behind the catch from Jerry Butler in 1977, which is why they call it Catch 2. At least Clemson does. Number 21 on the list, Mike Williams from 2013 to 16. Mike, again, could just go up and get the ball at any point. He was so dynamic in doing that. Now, here comes the debate, which you just had on the previous team, right? Because number 20, I got, as a dynamic player, I got just ahead of Mike Williams, T. Higgins. And you're like, Will, why you got a
little bit of duality here for Mr. Vandervort?
Exactly. What are you doing here, right? Well, yes, but see, here's the thing. Mike Williams could go up and get it, and T. Higgins could too. And maybe that's why people say, hey, this is probably why T. Higgins should be on the all list and not Mike Williams. But, and I got no problem with that argument, because T. Higgins, the reason I got him as a more dynamic player is because he could run away from you. Right? He could catch the ball and run away from you, as we've seen him do in the NFL. We saw him do in the Super Bowl, so that's why I have T. Higgins at number 20. I could have gone either way there, but I just figured to give T. Higgins that one. Number 19, one of Alex's favorite players, Jacoby Ford. Mr. Ford was a dynamic kickoff return specialist, a dynamic punt return specialist, and one heck of a wide receiver as well, and that's why I got him on this list at number 19. What do you think about that, Alex?
I think I'd feel a lot better about it if you had somebody different at number 18. I mean, what are we doing here, Will? What are we doing here?
Why can't you have Will Shipley at number 18? He's like
Will Shipley ahead of Jacoby Ford.
Because Will Shipley had more all-purpose yards, and he's one of the top all-purpose yard leaders in Clemson history.
Jacoby Ford is probably the fastest player ever to play for Clemson.
He is, but they're not running the 50-yard dash.
One of the fastest guys in America. He had a game-winning catch in overtime against the top 5 Miami team on the road. That play alone makes him a more dynamic player than Will
Shipley had the winning touchdown against Syracuse in a come-from-behind win. I mean, he also had the winning touchdown against Florida State.
Was that number 5 Syracuse, and was that on the road or
just and then Will Shipley single-handedly is the reason why Clemson beat Kentucky in the Gator Bowl in his last game.
Yeah, I think Clemson's win on the road against the top 5 Miami team in overtime with Jacoby Ford running away from everybody is probably a more dynamic play than any of those. But I mean, you do split hairs when you get to this. But Will, I'm never going to let you live down putting Will Shipley ahead of Jacoby Ford.
I'm sorry, man. Dynamic, all-purpose yards guy it means as dynamic as anybody, and Will Shipley's numbers prove that. So it's hard to argue numbers when their facts show, Alex, that he's one of the top all-purpose players in Clemson history.
Numbers have a lot to do with your style of play, and who your players around you are, and the style of play is a little bit different for those two guys.
Okay, I won't argue that. Number 17, Amari Rogers. Again, Amari, Jacoby. I think, you can kind of play either way if you want to.
Yeah, well,
I think put Jacoby up higher, you can put Jacoby there if you want to as well.
Amari is one spot ahead of Jacoby, like I can stomach that a little bit more.
That's because Amari's your friend. Just kidding, Amari. Just kidding, buddy.
You put him ahead of Jacoby Ford on the list.
I did. Amari's number 17 on my list, and so number 16. Number 16 is Deion Kane, who a lot of people forget in that national championship win in 2016. Deion Kane made the play that got Clemson back in the game. That 47-yard catch and run when it was 14-0, and Clemson's offense couldn't do anything at that point. He jump-started the offense. Deion Kane made some big plays in his Clemson career. He also made some stupid decisions where he got busted and got sent home in the Orange Bowl in 2015. But he made up for it the next year in 2016. Had a really good Clemson career, and I thought he deserved to be at number 16. Number 15, Justin Ross. I think if you ask me the first 2 years of Justin Ross's career, he's in the top 10.
Yep.
But then his last year, he just wasn't the same player after he came back from that surgery. You know what I'm saying, Alex? And it just really, he just wasn't the same guy, in my opinion, and just never really got going. I don't know if that has something to do with Justin Ross or his quarterback or both. It just seemed like he just wasn't the same guy his last year at Clemson. And so I think that kind of brought him down a little bit, but still good enough to say he's top 15 in the last 25 years, in my opinion.
Yep.
A lot of people are going to be surprised where I got this guy, but I'm going to explain the reason. Number 14 is DeAndre Hopkins. And the reason I have DeAndre not in the top 10 is because DeAndre, as great as he was at catching passes and running routes, he didn't have that breakaway speed that some of these other guys had, where they had the ability to gain. He didn't have the play where he changed the game by something he did. As far, you know what I'm saying? Like he was dynamic in who he was and what he could do with the way he could catch the ball and pinpoint it and the way he can get open. But he wasn't dynamic in the sense of, just making that game-changing play that changed the course of a game, right? I covered DeAndre in college and high school, and I love him, and I love his family and everybody. But to me, I think 14 is about right with DeAndre in this. Now, keep in mind, I do have him as in my all-time Clemson list because he did make a lot of great catches. And again, this list differs from that, right? This is talking about dynamic. So it makes it a little bit different on how you judge this right here. Number 13.
Thank you, Rob. I can tell that you're really paying attention to this conversation, and you're really getting it right here, Rob. So I appreciate it.
I got to see what Rob says here in a second. Number 13, Wayne Gallman. Wayne was dynamic in the sense that he could run between the tackles. And if you remember his play against South Carolina in 2014, he had 191 yards rushing. He's still the most rushing yards by a Clemson player against South Carolina. And, he did this when he played Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl, any of those big games. When you needed that 1 yard or that you need to get that 1 or 2 yards, Wayne Gallman got it most of the time. He was a physical runner, could run between the tackles, and then he also had the ability to run away from you and make that running. You know what I'm saying? And that's why, to me, he deserved to be on this list. Number 12, and I really thought about putting him in the top 10, was Christian Wilkins. It was hard
it had to be really hard not to put Christian Wilkins in the top 10. But, I'm seeing your list, and with all those players in the top 10, I mean, I feel like your margin between everybody past like number 2 is so small.
Yes.
That you can really, I mean, you could bump guys up 6 or 7 spots in about a 10-spot range in your rankings, because I think the margins are that small.
I agree 100%. Artavis Scott is number 11 in this. By the way, going back to Christian Wilkins, nobody will ever forget the play he made in the Orange Bowl, right? And his ability, that catch where he just tippy-toes down the sideline. I don't know any defensive tackle that can do that. And then the point that he also played in 2016, he moved out to defensive end. and was an All-American. And that's why it was so hard not to put him in the top 10, because he was so dynamic. He's the direct definition of dynamic.
Yeah,
but
I mean, he's versatile. You can put him in running the ball on a 2-point conversion. You can put him in on a goal line package. You can put him at defensive tackle, defensive end. I mean, hell, the guy probably, if he lost 10 or 15 pounds, probably would have been a great linebacker. I mean, I think he's that dynamic of a player. His foot speed was that good. His hand speed was that good. And that's why he's a hell of a player in the NFL right now, too.
And that's why if anybody wants to argue with me on that, they can. I don't have any problems about being argued with that. Yeah. Number 11, Artavis Scott. Artavis made a lot of big plays. Where's that music coming from? That me or you?
I don't hear any music.
I'm getting music in my ear. That means something's playing in my background.
I can't hear it, so it must not be coming through on the show.
The good news is it wasn't coming through on the show. But no, oh man, did I just knock off my list? It knocked off my list, Alex. That was what it was.
I got you, Bill. I can take over. Artavis Scott at number 11 from 2014 to 16. Yes. I agree with you. Definitely a dynamic player. I think we're going to have some serious debate when we get here in this top 10 because of what I mentioned earlier. Not because I think the names are bad, but because I think the margins are so small.
Yes.
So the first guy in your top 10, number 10, James Davis, 2005 to 2008, Thunder and the Thunder and Lightning duo. 100% with you that James Davis should be in the top 10 on this list.
Absolutely. He was, when you look at his final numbers, he finished second all-time in Clemson history in touchdowns. He finished second at the time in all-time in Clemson history in rushing yards. He played hurt through his senior year, and still he became the first player in Clemson history to lead the team in rushing all 4 years. Only one other guy has done it since, and that guy's name was Travis Etienne. So when you throw all that in, his ability also to break away runs, and you think about it, James Davis, people don't think about his speed, but when he got in the open field, he always outran. He always ran it in for touchdowns. He had those long touchdown runs as well, and he played hurt, and he was physical between the tackles, so he could get a tough yard for you. Remember, 2 winning touchdowns that he got. He got the winning touchdown to beat Florida State, Clemson's first win against Florida State in Tallahassee since 1989. And then he did that in 2006, scoring the winning touchdown. Then he scored the winning touchdown against South Carolina. Remember, in 2005, Charlie Whitehurst's last game, he scored it on a 2-yard power play there to win the winning touchdown as a true freshman. James Davis was outstanding and deserves to be number 10 on this list. What's number 9? Who's number 9 real fast?
Number 9 is Justin Miller, 2002 to 2004. Obviously, he ranks third in Clemson history in kickoff return yards with 1,534. Personally, I would have Justin Miller higher than number 9 on this list, but I definitely deserve to be in the top 10.
I don't have a problem with that. Justin Miller holds the Clemson record for yards on kickoff return average, 30.7. He set the NCAA record at the time against Florida State with 282 kickoff return yards, 2 touchdowns. Was a shoelace away from a third. People forget about that. He was a shoelace away. The kicker reached out and grabbed his shoelace and tackled him. I mean, it was like that's what kind of tackle it was because the sea had departed again and he was going. And that was a heck of a performance by him. He tied the Clemson single season record for interceptions by any player. He did that his freshman year when he had 8 interceptions. He had 17 pass breakups that year, which tied him with another guy who's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You might know him as Brian Dawkins. He's tied his record. So just outstanding career. He did a lot of things: kickoff, punt return, and then as a defensive back, as a defensive player, make game-changing plays. Number 9 on the list. Who's got number 8? Who do I got number 8?
Number 8 on the list is Andre Ellington.
Andre Ellington. And Alex, describe how I described Andre Ellington in this list.
You mentioned that because he followed Spiller and came before Etienne that he's often forgotten on this list. But he 5th all-time for Clemson in all-purpose yards with 4,586. You mentioned his first step and how explosive he was through the hole. Again,
one of the best I've ever seen.
He's bookended by the 2 best, so it's hard to fully appreciate. It was hard to fully appreciate at the time how good Andre Ellington really was at that running back position.
Yeah, fifth all-time in all-purpose yards, fifth all-time in rushing yards. I believe he's fourth all-time in total touchdowns, fourth all-time, fifth all-time in rushing touchdowns. I mean, he put up
fifth
big
in all three
numbers.
of those categories. Yep.
He put up big numbers in his career, and he ran away from people. Like if he got out in the open, he was gone. You weren't catching Andre Ellington. Yeah. They called him Little Bit. He's one of my favorite people. It's a Little Bit. If you're watching, man, that's a guy we need to get on this show just see what's going on with Little Bit.
Looking at this list, there's a few guys on this list that I think are going to be on our show in the fall, hopefully.
Go ahead. Who's next, Alex, and what number?
Number 7 on the list is Isaiah Simmons, 16 to 19.
Yeah, Isaiah Simmons. Have we seen a more dynamic player on Clemson's defense than him?
No.
He played linebacker. He played safety. He played nickel back. He could play cornerback. He could play outside linebacker. He could play defensive end. I mean, Brent Venables pretty much used him everywhere. And Alex, read his numbers. That's what stand out to you the most.
Yeah, I mean, it finished his Clemson career with 253 tackles, including 28.5 for a loss, 10.5 sacks, 22 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 5 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery.
Those numbers are sick, dude.
He has something for every category. And it's not like a lame duck, like, oh, he did that once number. I mean, they're like impressive, put you on a all-time school history list numbers. And I mean, like you mentioned, just versatile, could play anything. They could have put him at running back or wide receiver if Brent would have let him go to the other side of the ball, and he would have been just as dynamic. I mean,
he is, man, one of the greatest players I've ever seen play for Clemson football. And who we got on there at number 6?
Number 6 is Derek Hamilton, 2001 to 2003.
The Noodle. Tommy Bowden called him the Noodle because every time you think he had him, and he just do some wiggle way to get out of it, and he reverse field, and next thing you know, he's running 68 yards for a touchdown. He's a football coach at Newberry High School right now, and just one of the best wide receivers in Clemson history, one of the best all-purpose players in Clemson history. Read his stats out there, what I had on there. I know he was pretty high on the all-purpose list.
Over 1,500 yards on kickoff returns, ranked second to Spiller. He's 5th in Clemson history in punt returns with 618. And he finished his career with 4,839 all-purpose yards, 4th in Clemson history.
And he only played 3 years.
Yeah.
He only played 3 years. Derek Hamilton may have made life harder for C.J. Spiller to break records if Derek Hamilton would have played that 4th year, which a lot of people argue he should have came back and played that one more year. I know a lot of guys on here would say the same thing. Who do we got ranked number 5, Alex?
Number 5 is a guy that we've talked a lot about tonight, and that's Deshaun Watson.
Yes. Now, Deshaun Watson, you say, Will, but you got him as your quarterback. And by the way, he's not the first quarter. He's not the highest ranked quarterback on this list. He's the second highest ranked quarterback on this list.
And it's not Trevor Lawrence that's ahead of him.
It's not Trevor Lawrence that's ahead of him. We'll get to that in a second. The reason he is number 5, though, is because Deshaun, as I mentioned earlier, not only could he throw the football and threw for over 4,000 yards, and he's probably the greatest total offensive leader in Clemson history. As a matter of fact, he is from a total yard standpoint. But when you rush for almost 2,000 yards, and you have 26 touchdowns, which ties Taj Boyd for touchdowns. Here's the difference between Taj and Deshaun. Taj's touchdowns were like mostly from 2 or 3 yards out. Deshaun's touchdowns are from like 50 yards, 40 yards. You know, so that he had that 70-yard run where he got tackled at the 1-yard line against Miami. Remember, that would have been in there. I mean, Deshaun had these dynamic runs. And then, guys, let's go ahead and throw it out there. He played with a torn ACL against South Carolina.
Yep.
And scored 2 rushing touchdowns. The guy was just different. That's why he's number 5 on this list. Very, very versatile, dynamic player.
Yeah, and that brings up another player that I'm surprised is not on this list, and that's Taj Boyd. But to number 4, Sammy Watkins, 2011 to 13.
I mean, what happened on Sammy Watkins' first play from scrimmage or second play from scrimmage? What did he do?
He scored a very long touchdown.
And what did he do the next week against Auburn?
He did the same thing.
And what did he do the very next week against Florida State?
He decided to do it again. And then later in the year, he had like a the most miraculous 89-yard kick return I've ever seen.
Exactly. At Maryland in a comeback win when Clemson was down, I think 21-0 at that point. I mean, Sammy Watkins, the thing I'll always remember about Sammy Watkins and why I got him on this list so high was that Orange Bowl where he did everything, and he carried Clemson in that game. And Alex, I'll never forget when he took off his uniform and he's sitting there talking to us in the media after he just did all these interviews and all that. He finally takes off his jersey, and dude, it looked like he's been being beaten. He has bruises on his shoulders, on his chest, on his ribs. I'd never seen a guy that black and blue in my life when he took off his uniform. That's how hard he played in that game, and that's how hard Ohio State was beating the crap out of him. And he would get up and go out there and play. One of the toughest performances and the most underrated toughest performance in Clemson history, in my opinion. And that's why he's number 4 on that list. Who do we got next? Number 3, finishing out the top 3 now.
Number 3 is none other than Woody D, 1998 to 2001, to barely sneak into the qualification for this list. But without a doubt, one of the most dynamic players in Clemson history. The Hail Mary run alone puts him on the list. He was the first quarterback in major college football to run for 1,000 and throw for 2,000 the same year. And he didn't just do it once; he did it 2 years in a row.
Yeah, just unbelievable, man. He's
before his time too. I mean, if
he was way before his time.
If Woody D was playing now, he'd be like a top 5 player in the country, if not the top player in the country in his recruiting class.
He would be Lamar Jackson like, is what he would be. And I'm not saying he is Lamar Jackson. He'd be Lamar Jackson like.
Yeah,
like Woodrow Dantzler was just ahead of his time. He really was.
And he was barely ahead of his time, too. That's the thing is like,
man,
if he was even 7 or 8 years later, Vince Young wished he was as athletic as Woody D. And you saw what he was able to do, win a national title and the accolades that he won. So there were players shortly after him that definitely in some ways, I'm sure, benefited from the type of football that he popularized.
The runs that John Grant missing DeAndre McDaniel on this list. Yeah, but he's not. He's on the list of best. Like I got from the all 2000 Clemson teams. He's on that list. DeAndre McDaniel is. He's not on this list because as good as DeAndre did, he didn't consistently make the game changing plays that all these guys on this list did, and that's why we got these guys on this list because they made more explosive, dynamic plays and had dynamic careers. DeAndre McDaniel was great, but he was a safety, strong safety. He didn't really come out of that safety role that much. He was more of a safety where, he wasn't an Isaiah Simmons or Christian Wilkins that are on this list from the defensive standpoint. Real quick on Woody Dantzler, though, Alex, 2 plays stand out to me in Woody Dantzler's career. The first one that I remember was his play against North Carolina in 1999. He was in for the injured Brandon Streeter, and he tippy-toes down the sideline. I've never seen it before in my life. I don't know how he didn't fall out of bounds. He tippy-toes down the sideline and goes in for a touchdown from like 60 yards out. One of the most dynamic plays you'll ever see. And then against Georgia Tech in 2001, you mentioned the Hail Mary run. That was literally what it was. It was the Hail Mary run. I think Tim Beret is the one who named it that because it's like 10 seconds to go in the half, and Woody starts to scramble, and the half was going to run out. And so if he gets tackled, they don't score any points. So he miraculously made like 9 guys miss and got into the end zone. It's one of the most miraculous touchdowns I've ever seen. And he did that all the time as a quarterback. And he was so fun to watch, man. One of the most fun players you could watch play the game of college football, in my opinion. All right, number 2.
The way we're going to do this is we're going to make you answer your question. Okay. That is the title of the article. Will, who is more dynamic? Is it CJ Spiller or is it Travis Etienne?
Now, keeping in what the definition of dynamic is. Dynamic is how you do things all purpose wise, how explosive you are in other areas. There's no doubt Travis Etienne is the greatest running back in Clemson history. Not going to argue it. He's the greatest running back in ACC history. All-time touchdown record leader, all-time rushing yard leader. He NCAA, I think he scored the most touchdowns, in the NCAA history in his career when he left Clemson. So, yes, Travis Etienne is the greatest running back to ever play Clemson, but the most dynamic, and it's not even close, is C.J. Spiller.
Yeah, and the reason I can't imagine that you had any debate under this, unless it was like people my age.
I did.
Don't understand.
I did. People your age were coming at me with Travis Etienne, and I get why they say that, but they never really saw C.J. Spiller play. Because if you saw C.J. Spiller play, and you saw on the first play of the 2009 season, the very first play, he takes the kickoff 99 yards for a touchdown. The very first play of the season. That's how he opens his 2009 campaign. And by the way, Alex, what people didn't know is he had turf toe. He played the entire season with turf toe.
And he had a kickoff return for a touchdown against South Carolina with one shoe on. It's like,
well, that was Maryland.
Maryland with one shoe on.
And then South Carolina, he did it twice.
We did it twice in a row.
He did it twice in a row.
Back. Yeah.
Yes. And so he set the NCAA record, still holds it for the most kickoff returns for a touchdown in a career, the most kickoff returns for a touchdown in a season, that 2009 season. He holds the record for most kickoff and punt returns for a touchdown in a career. He is third on the NCAA list for all-purpose yards, first in ACC history. Who is second in ACC history in all-purpose yards behind him? Who's second behind C.J. Spiller in all-purpose yards?
Would that be Travis Etienne?
That'd be Travis Etienne. So it's like you're picking straws here. I mean, they're really close.
Yeah.
But Spiller had more yards, had more explosive plays on kickoff returns, punts, and also had more explosive plays in the passing game. C.J. Spiller was way more of a passing weapon his entire career at Clemson than Etienne was. Etienne became one at the end of his career. C.J. Spiller was his entire career. Remember his first touchdown of his career? C.J. Spiller's first ever college touchdown was on a screen pass where he catches the ball in the flats against Boston College and goes 82 yards for a touchdown.
And he scored many touchdowns on that same screen pass. You'd think he'd be looking for the bubble screen. I mean, Clemson fans, I think, still have a little bit of PTSD from the amount of bubble screens.
That wasn't a bubble screen, though. That was just a halfback screen. But still, points there. He did that. Then against Georgia Tech, the most famous. And this is why he wins this award, because as great as Travis Etienne was, Travis Etienne never did anything like what C.J. Spiller did to those two Georgia Tech players in the 2006 game. They're wearing the all-purple, which I hate that they're wearing the all-purple. But I remember that play live in the stadium. I remember watching it on the replay on ABC as they were showing it. And I remember going home and rewatching it like 12 times after I got home that night, because I still could not believe how in the world, and not only that those guys didn't tackle him, Alex, but they didn't touch him. How did they not even touch him? He was untouched on that play, and they were right there, dead to right, had him dead to right on the sideline.
Yeah, and as if all of the other things that you've said for the reason C.J. Spiller's number one on the list aren't good enough, he is also a college football Hall of Famer. So in case you don't have enough reasons, there's one player on this list who's a college football Hall of Famer right now,
right?
And it's that guy.
Yeah, and I got a feeling a couple other guys on that list will be also college football Hall of Famers eventually. But right now, you're correct. He is the only one on the list that is currently a member of the College Football Hall of Fame. Very good point there, Alex. I didn't even put that in there. That was very good. You just get that on your own brownie points there for helping me on that one.
The only notes I have on this whole list,
yes,
I still think, well, other than the ones that I made evidently clear that were in the back of your list, that I'm still going to give you crap about when this is over. I agree that D-Mac is definitely a honorable mention for this list. I think he was dynamic. He had one of the.
I'm fine with an honorable mention. Yeah,
I give him an honorable mention, and I think Taj Boyd and the way he ran the Clemson offense, it's hard not to think about him as one of the most dynamic players in Clemson football history.
Taj was right there at that number 25.
Taj Boyd, if you're listening to this, you can get on Vandervort next time you see him.
Steal a wheel, he likes to say. He said, get out, steal a wheel. Taj, you were right there, buddy. I had you right there. But, when we're at that, where we got Chancey and we got,
Chancey behind Hunter Renfrow
and Hunter Renfrow.
Jacoby Ford.
And I wanted to put you on it, Taj, but the list is dynamic players, and Taj is a great passer, great quarterback, no doubt. But Taj only had one long run his whole career. I mean, it was against Ohio State, and even he was surprised it was so wide open. And he'll tell you that.
I think you can be a dynamic passer and still be a dynamic player. And also the way he was able – I think the way he was able to be used in the run game as a power rusher qualifies him as dynamic.
Now, you think about Taj and Trevor were probably the two best passers.
Yeah.
Right. Of the three main quarterbacks, right. With Deshaun, I would say Deshaun's close, but I would say Taj, because Taj did the best long ball of anybody I've ever seen. And, everybody says, well, that's because they were running so wide open. You can overthrow the long ball.
Well, and Trevor Lawrence is the most accurate passer.
And he was most accurate.
It's not particularly close.
But here's the thing that's funny about it. Their two best runs came against who?
Ohio State.
Best runs came against Ohio State. And they came at moments when you're like, what? How did that happen? Is that not the craziest thing when you think about Clemson history and Clemson lore? Like the two most biggest runs in those kind of games were done by Trevor Lawrence and Taj Boyd, who you do not think of either one of those guys as runners, I just think that, to me, that's just crazy. And by the way, because of those two runs is why I thought about putting those two guys on the list at some point. So they were there as like people out, because I go down and I write all my nominations down and I go through, and then that's how I do it. And I had like 40 guys, 50 guys on that list. So I had to narrow it down. That was hard to do. The same way when I was doing the all 2000s list, I had a bunch of guys on there. On the all 2000s list, like talking about defensive ends at Clemson. I mean, you're talking about, look who I left off.
Yeah.
Cleveland Farrell, 2-time AP All-American, first team All-American. I left that guy off the list. I mean, but I had to look at the guys I did keep put on. Gaines Adams, I left that guy off the list. I mean, it's hard. Ricky Sapp, another Bamberg guy. Shout out.
Everybody should really know the real reason that you put Daquan Bowers on the list over Gaines Adams.
Bamberg Earhart, baby.
Let it fly.
But anyway, man, that was fun. Appreciate all you guys that have been watching with us. And you can go back and watch this, listen to this later if you want to. It'll be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And also, you can catch it later here on YouTube. Once it loads, it'll automatically load to our videos on YouTube as well. So we appreciate you being with us. For Alex Dodd, I'm Will Vandervort. We'll be back later this summer with another podcast, and then we'll be getting you ready for the season. It will be a weekly thing once the season gets going. So thanks for being here. For Alex Dodd, I'm Will Vandervort. Thanks for watching Believe in Clemson Football.